Chapter 1. Rebirth in Aztlan. When I woke up, the first thing I felt was the cold, hard stone beneath me. The second was the intense headache, as if my brain had been scrambled and forcefully reset. Groaning, I sat up, my vision slowly coming into focus. The dark underground ceiling of my small, windowless room came into view. The last thing I remembered was cursing at my computer, laughing at how easily I could conquer the game if only I had control of the villain. And then, a lightning strike, blinding and impossibly loud. Next thing I knew, I was here. I blinked. No way! I stumbled over to the cracked mirror hanging on the wall. The face staring back at me was all too familiar. Pale skin, sharp, almost cruel eyes, and a body that radiated latent strength. It wasn't my face, but I recognized it immediately. This was the villain of the game, the character I had spent countless hours playing, the guy who was mocked by the heroes, shunned by the girl he loved, and eventually crushed by the game's protagonist. But not this time. A grin spread across my face. Somehow, I'd reincarnated into the villain's body, the same guy I had mocked while playing the game. But instead of fear, all I felt was excitement. I knew everything about this world, every twist, every hidden secret, every technique. I was 1 week away from the mandatory enlistment into the Aztlan City Watch training program, and I had just enough time to set things right. The villain's life in the game had gone downhill after he confessed his love to Princess Lin Mei, the game's stunning, unattainable heroine, only to be humiliated when the hero, Wei Lian, made his failure public. It was a crushing moment of mockery that had burned deep into the villain's soul, spurring him to form the infamous Blood Guild and seek revenge against the nobility. Wei Lian had used the moment to cement his place as the golden boy of the story, rising to fame as the hero who was loved by everyone. This time, however, I wasn't playing by the same rules. I had no interest in Wei Lian's heroism or Lin Mei's dismissal. Instead, I was going to show them all that this so-called villain was the true power in this world. I wasn't here to destroy the world. I was here to dominate it and have fun doing it. The world of Aztlan and the City Watch training program. Aztlan was a world unlike any other. The city was deep underground, carved into the earth beneath towering mountains, and the inhabitants had lived there for centuries, isolated from the surface. Resources were scarce in the safe zones, where little cultivation energy filtered through the rock. But beyond the city's borders lay the wild zones, dangerous areas teeming with powerful beasts, unrestrained cultivation energy, and most importantly, spirit cores and spirit crystals. These spirit cores were extracted from beasts, granting cultivators a surge in power, while spirit crystals were used for both cultivation and currency. They were the lifeblood of Aztlan, and whoever controlled the flow of these resources controlled everything. To maintain order and ensure survival, every citizen, even nobles, had to enlist in the Shadow Trials, a 2-year training program under the Aztlan City Watch. It was a brutal test of survival, combat, and leadership, where participants were ranked by their cultivation strength and divided into factions. The top 30 ranked cultivators would become commanders, tasked with recruiting their own squads and leading them in battle, resource collection, and raids. The others would be divided into groups by these commanders, forming alliances and occasionally clashing over precious resources. But here was the twist. The greatest rewards were found in the dangerous wild zones, and while the safe zones provided just enough energy to sustain low-level cultivators, the real treasure lay in the most dangerous areas, where spirit cores and crystals were abundant but fiercely guarded by beasts of terrifying strength. In the game, I knew exactly how the villain had failed. He'd been too focused on revenge. This time, I was going to take a different route. I wouldn't wait to be humiliated. I'd be one of those top 30 commanders. No, I'd be the best. I had 1 week to prepare before the shadow trials began. 1 week to cultivate in secret, using the knowledge I'd gained from playing the game over and over again. 1 week to ensure that I, a commoner, would rise to power. The cultivation system. The cultivation system in Aztlan was divided into 5 stages, each requiring increasingly rare and powerful spirit cores and crystals to advance. Iron Vein, the first stage, where cultivators begin refining their spirit force, building the foundation for future growth. Copper Vein. At this stage, cultivators begin to unlock special techniques and can absorb small amounts of spirit energy from the environment. Silver Core, a significant jump in power. At this stage, cultivators can absorb the energy from spirit cores, enhancing their abilities greatly. Gold Core. Those who reach this stage can control vast amounts of spirit energy and are capable of leading others in battle. Spirit Tyrant, the highest known level of cultivation. Spirit Tyrants can absorb multiple spirit cores at once and are unmatched in combat. The key to advancing was the careful balance of absorbing spirit cores and refining the spirit crystals used for cultivation. But I knew of techniques, hidden ones, that could speed up my progress and allow me to leap ahead of the other trainees. New plans, new goals. I couldn't just charge into the shadow trials unprepared. I had to act fast. In the game, the villain had spent most of his time in the city, gathering support from commoners. This time, I would go into the wild zones ahead of schedule. I knew the exact locations of certain beasts, ones that would be just strong enough to give me a boost, but not so strong that I couldn't defeat them with the villain's current abilities. If I could gather enough spirit cores in the next few days, I'd have enough power to enter the shadow trials. As a serious contender for one of the commander positions, I knew who the other top contenders would be: noble heirs, talented warriors, and the main protagonist himself. And of course, Princess Lin Mei, who was practically guaranteed a spot. But Lin Mei wasn't my main focus. The one I had my sights on now was Wei Lian, the so-called hero of the story. He wasn't just a party animal or some careless fool. He was my enemy, the man who had humiliated me in the game. He had stolen the spotlight, mocked me, and crushed me without a second thought. This time, it would be different. I wouldn't just defeat Wei Lian, I would humiliate him. I would make him suffer the way he had made me suffer in the game. He wouldn't be the golden hero anymore. I would strip him of everything: his power, his reputation, and his pride. As for Lin Mei, she would come to me eventually. She would see the strength I had, and she would realize that I was the one worthy of her attention, not Wei Lian. But I wouldn't make the same mistake I did in the game. I wouldn't confess to her. I would make her chase me. After all, I knew exactly what she wanted: power, control, and someone strong enough to stand by her side. But first, I had to get strong enough to make it all happen. With a final glance at my reflection, I turned away from the mirror, a grin tugging at my lips. I know all the tricks. This time I'm going to win. And so, I left the safety of the city, slipping into the dark tunnels that led to the wild zones. The week before the shadow trials would be critical. If I could gather enough spirit cores, I'd be well on my way to becoming one of the top 30 commanders. I wasn't the hero of this story. I wasn't the villain either. I was something entirely different. And by the end of it, Aztlan would bow to me.